In today's video, we're going to take a look at how the bamboo is faring over the winter. We're going to start some more seeds. I'll give you an update on how the seedlings are growing that we started about a month ago, and we'll take a look at a few things in the garden. Hi, it's Steph. Welcome back to my garden. It has been really cold. We've had some snow, some rain, but this weekend it has been beautiful and sunny. So I thought that I'd come outside and show you a few things. And specifically, I've had some questions recently about how the bamboo is doing over the winter. So I garden in a zone 6B, 7A, and this is bamboo Pieris rufa, and it is a clumping type bamboo, which is not supposed to be invasive. Typically, bamboo has a reputation for being invasive, and that is specifically the running variety. But because I wanted to be sure that that wouldn't happen, I did plant them in these long corten steel planters. And I'm happy to report that even after a cold winter, the bamboo is holding up, and it hasn't died or dropped its leaves. It's still looking green, so I think I could say that it is evergreen here in my zone 6B 7A garden. Now this plant, the bamboo that I'm talking about here, this clumping bamboo, the Pieris rufa, is rated to a growing zone 5 through 9. So it is hardy in my zone. I just didn't know how it would act over the winter since it's my first season with it. And so far, so good. A couple of other things that are looking great in the garden is some evergreen shrubs. Now, if you've been around for a little while, you know that I love evergreens, and there are a couple that are really shining at the moment. This here is a Karsten's Winter Gold Mugo Pine, and it gets really golden in the winter, and it currently looks really beautiful. This variety has been trained into a standard, so you can see it's on a long stem, and it's looking really pretty. And when the trees drop their leaves up above, I have a lot of like native oaks, and they're deciduous trees. So in the fall, when they drop all of their leaves, they allow more sun to hit these evergreens that I have back in this area, and it really allows their golden color to shine. Now, this particular Mugo pine, it is characteristic for it to be golden, more golden in the winter, the Karsten's Winter Gold Mugo Pine. It's also a dwarf or slower growing variety. Only gets to be about 3 to 4 feet tall and wide. But that one, it will be a little bit different habit because it is trained on a standard or topiary. But this one here, this is a hemlock. This is the Golden Duchess hemlock. It's been here, I want to say this is probably its 3rd or 4th year. And it's beautiful. It gets a lot more golden in the winter, again, because the deciduous trees drop their leaves, allowing more sunlight to hit this shrub. And so it's nice and yellow at the moment and looking really pretty. Now, this is also a smaller conifer. It only gets to be about 3 to 5 feet wide and about 4 feet or so tall. But of course, it will continue to grow over time. It's just more slow growing. And I really love the color that it's offering the garden at this point in the winter. And a couple of other things. Here on the stairs that lead up to the patio, we have these 2 shrubs that I have flanking either side. And these are the Fire Chief arborvitaes. And in the spring, they get the most beautiful and vibrant kind of yellow-green chartreuse color. But currently, they have a bronze coloring, and this is normal for these shrubs. One might look at these and think that they're dying. They're not. This is just their winter color. So it's another shrub that provides a lot of interest. You can see, actually, inside, it is nice and green, and pretty soon, it will start getting more yellow as we get warmer in the spring. I also have these 2 corten steel containers that are 12 by 12 cubes that I had some questions about whether or not I was going to leave these perennials in here over the winter. And I did. I left them in here. I have a ghost fern, a heuchera, and a Hakonokloa Japanese forest grass. And we will see in the spring if they come back. But this was an experiment. Typically, perennials will overwinter in a container as long as they are 2 zones hardier than your growing zone. So we'll see how it goes. And here in the back of the garden where I have this woodland bed, there's a couple of things going on. Now the hellebore foliage starts looking a little bit more tattered as we get to the end of the winter. And in early spring, I do go through and I clean up all of this foliage and I fertilize. I do have a video on how I do that I can link below. But I'm looking at them now and they are budded up. My hellebores are starting to bud and these are going to be gorgeous pretty soon. You can see there's some buds there and right there. And even this red one here is looking really pretty. Look at that. That's going to be stunning with all of those dark buds. Another thing that I noticed in this back woodland bed is that one of my Pieris, or Japanese Andromeda, doesn't have any bloom buds, which is so disappointing. These both bloomed beautifully last year in very early spring, so probably right around the first day of spring. I had beautiful blooms on these. They have bell-shaped blooms. This one here is the Monrovia impish elf, and it gets to be 3 to 4 feet tall and wide. Had the most gorgeous, deep rose-colored bell-shaped blooms. And you can see that it has bloom buds. So it's going to bloom again this year. But this one on the side, which was a lighter pink called Valley Rose, was also really pretty. But I noticed it doesn't have any bloom buds, which is a little disappointing. Now, there's a couple of reasons that could be. Pieris, these varieties here are only hardy to a zone 6, and I'm in a zone 6B, 7A, but we've had an exceptionally cold winter. So my thoughts are that perhaps it was too cold for the shrub to set bloom buds. That's one possibility. The other reason they might not bloom is if they're pruned at the incorrect time. You can see that I still have all of the dried bloom pods from last year. I actually never pruned it, so that wouldn't be the reason. If you prune at the wrong time, meaning that you cut on the shrub when it's starting to set buds, it could be that you lop off that year's blooms. So because I know that wasn't the case, the only other possibility would be that the soil in this area isn't acidic enough. And so I could fertilize it with something like Hollytone, but it would be too late probably for this year for it to set buds. My guess is that maybe this one is just not as cold tolerant as the other one. We're gonna check on the winter sowing here in my raised bed garden, but I've been really loving the way that these Vego beds look. Even now in the winter when everything is dead, the sleek metal beds in this gray color is still looking really pretty. But here are my winter sowing containers. Now there's no germination yet. It is still a little bit early for that. But what I was checking for was moisture. We've had some rain and we've had some snow. So I think it's been just enough to keep them happy. But if you were to pick up your container and it felt a little bit light, that could indicate that maybe they need a little bit of water. And they can dry out if you have a couple of sunny days and there wasn't enough moisture to begin with, or even if it's been really windy and you haven't had any rain or snow. So something you want to check on, because if you don't have enough moisture in there, it won't be enough to germinate your seeds and then it won't work. So I find that these hand misters are really great for getting in there and watering your containers when needed. They give a little bit of mist, which provides a little bit of moisture, and it works well. So that's what I was doing down here, just checking on that. And then I noticed a couple of things that were really exciting. So in this bed here, right behind us, I had started some cool weather seeds in the fall. I had shown in a video that I had purchased the Lisa Mason Ziegler book, and I wanted to experiment with the cool weather method, which is growing annuals in late summer, early fall for fall transplant, so that in the spring you will have some early blooms. Well, I'm happy to report that even though my seedlings were really small, because I started them late in September, some Love in a Mist Nigella, look at this. I still have some green, which is so exciting. That means that these look like they're surviving the winter so far, and we've had some really cold temperatures this year here in my zone 6B, 7A. So I'm hopeful that we will get some early spring blooms. And look at this, the bachelor's buttons. These were started on 9-4 as well, the artistic mix. I think maybe I planted out about a dozen or just under that. But because they're green, that's really promising. They should pick up where they left off as soon as it warms up, and we'll get some blooms. And then even here on this bed on the side, there were some feverfew and some summer pastels yarrow that I started. Now the summer pastels yarrow, I can see a little seedling right here, that little ferny foliage. See that? So exciting. And the feverfew was on this side, and I don't see any signs of the feverfew. So we'll see once it warms up if that shows up. But the summer pastels yarrow, at least there's one that I see, so that's really exciting. My Hamamelis or witch hazel, Diane, is blooming. Look at this. This is a reddish kind of coppery colored witch hazel, which typically you see is the yellow varieties, and it's starting to bloom, which is so fun. To have something that blooms in February was the whole reason I wanted to add one of these to my garden for the last couple of years. And I just found one recently in the fall. My local nursery had one, and I was able to order one. The Hamamelis Diane. Let me see if I can get a good bloom to show you. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? It's like a copper kind of corally red orange. I love it. I can't wait until this gets larger and we have a ton of these to see. The deer have been visiting my garden recently and they took some bites out of my rhododendron. You can always tell when they've been around because they make kind of sharp cuts like you see there. They're really rigid. See, that's a deer bite right here and right here. They took the foliage off. So such a bummer because I really love my rhododendron. This is a beautiful pink one that blooms for me in the spring. And this is my largest one. I have 3. 2 of them are pretty much on their way out. They're really struggling. But this one was nice and big and looking gorgeous. But I'm going to have to spray it to make sure that they don't eat it. They get really hungry and ravenous this time of year. And I'm really good about spraying in the spring and summer, but I fall behind in late fall and winter. I probably only get out here about once a month. But this is what I'm going to be using, the liquid fence deer and rabbit. So here's your reminder, friends. If you have some things out in the garden that the deer and bunnies might be after, go ahead and get some spray on them. I try to focus my spray on the buds because I feel like that's what they're most interested in, although they did eat the leaves, so who knows. Let's just give it all a good old spray. This stuff is putrid, but if it keeps my blooms safe, I'll take one for the team. Have you ever noticed that when it gets really cold out, rhododendron foliage will droop downward? It's something really interesting that happens. And there's nothing wrong with the shrub. It's just cold like the rest of us in winter. As soon as it starts warming up, the foliage will perk back up. All right, let's get inside now so I can wash this scent off my hands and we can start working on some seed things. I recently ordered a few more seeds from Baker Creek Seeds, and these are new to me this year. So this one here is Hollyhock Majorette Double Champagne, and it's a really gorgeous kind of apricot color. I love flowers this color. I'm actually growing the Foxglove Dalmatian Peach again this year, which I'll show you how they're doing under the grow lights, that have a very similar shade of peach apricot. So we're going to grow these. Now, most hollyhocks are a biennial, which means that you grow them in 1 year and they bloom on year 2. It does say annual biennial, but when I was reading the reviews on Baker Creek's website on these, a lot of people said that they bloomed the first year. So I'm hopeful that we'll get first year blooms. So we'll start these today. And then these are new to me. I've never grown phlox from seed. So I have 2 varieties here, the Phlox Cherry Caramel, which is a really pretty kind of apricot color as well with a fuchsia center. And then this one, which is Blueberry Swirl. Now, I first saw this Blueberry Swirl at my friend Maureen's house when we did a garden tour there last summer. She had grown some from seed and she had them in a large planter in front of her garage. And they were stunning. They have such a different color variation between all the flowers. So really pretty, and a trailing habit, which would make them great for the front of a container or even a hanging basket. Now, these want to be started 6 to 8 weeks before the last frost date. So I am going to wait closer to mid to end of March to start these. Probably mid-March, but today I'll get these going. I filled my seed starting cells with some seed starting mix, and now I put some water into this tray and I'm letting them soak up this water before I go ahead and sow these hollyhock seeds into these cells. So while that's happening, I'm going to go ahead and set up 2 winter sowing containers. I've been setting up more winter sowing containers as I accumulate these water jugs. We use spring water in our coffee maker, so I usually end up with 1 a week. So as soon as I have a couple more, I start some more seeds. And today I'm going to be starting some more feverfew. I started some in the fall using the cool flower method, and I planted them out in the raised bed garden, but I'm going to grow a few more in a winter sowing container just to get extra, because these are small daisy-like flowers that look really great in cut flower arrangements. And I love to cut flowers from from my garden and arrange them during the growing season, so I love to have filler flowers. And this variety of Verbena bonariensis. Now this is a new to me variety this year, the Verbena vanity. This is shorter than the one I've been growing. The Verbena bonariensis is typically about 3 to 4 feet in height, and this vanity variety gets to be about 2.5 feet in height. So I am going to try that this year. And if you're not familiar with winter sowing, I do have a 5-minute quick start guide that I will link below that you can check out, but it's essentially creating a mini greenhouse out of a recycled container, and it's a great method for growing seeds without the need for using up indoor space or having any special equipment. Going to start some sweet peas. Now last year I bought these packs, and of course there was plenty in the package, so I'm going to use them again this year. The sweet pea mammoth salmon cream and the sweet pea heirloom mix. And I've been saving these toilet paper rolls instead of putting them in the recycle bin, because last year when I started sweet peas I used my burpee trays, and someone mentioned that they had success growing them in toilet paper rolls because sweet peas don't like to be transplanted and they have a deep tap root. Many people will buy like root trainer trays to grow them, but we're going to go ahead and try the toilet paper rolls and see how that goes. So let me get some soil and we're going to start these. Okay, so this scoop is a Fisker scoop. I'm not really sure what it's supposed to be for, but I think it's going to work perfectly for this purpose. And I found this old Tupperware that I'm going to use instead, because the tubes will sit in here a lot better. In here, I'm afraid that they would get knocked over. Let me give you a quick update on what's going on under the grow lights here in the basement. So we started some seeds about a month ago, and we have a lot of growth, which is super exciting. I really look forward to coming down here after dinner and kind of checking on things, looking to see what needs water and how things are growing. And I can tell you that the alyssum, this is sweet alyssum, it is a very ambitious grower. These sprouted in about maybe 3 days max, and look at them. They're looking awesome. I am probably going to pinch these back a little bit to encourage more side branching, but these should be ready to bloom for me when I put them out towards the end of April. So that is a lot of fun. If you haven't started alyssum seeds yet, they're really easy, and now we're heading into the end of February, beginning of March, perfect time to get some of these going. The forget-me-nots. So I have 2 varieties of forget-me-nots going. I had purchased originally the Victoria Blue. It was a botanical interests pack that I had purchased at one of my local nurseries. I had a lot of spotty germination on that one. I actually went in afterwards and sowed a couple of extras. Let me tell you the date. I originally started these on 125, and I had some that had sprouted and some that didn't. So on 212, I went in and I put a couple more seeds in the pack here, and you can see that I have a couple more that are starting to germinate. There's a little one coming up right there, and a couple of others that are starting to sprout. So the Victoria Blue didn't germinate all that well for me. However, about a couple of weeks ago, maybe not even, 212, I sowed this tray of a different variety of forget-me-not, Bluebird. That one is a lot more ambitious. This was the first sowing, and I have a bunch of seedlings, so I will have to thin those out. My snapdragons, the Madam Butterfly, these were sown on 125. They are ready to be parsed out of this cell pack here. See, I have a couple in each pack that I want to try to keep. So I'm going to plant these up into larger pots with some potting soil at this point, because this is all seed starting mix. And the snapdragons are also going to be able to be planted out pretty soon. So in March, around the end of spring, well, the beginning of spring, the end of March, I'm going to start hardening those off, and I'm going to get them out around the same time that I get out the alyssum. And Dusty Miller. This is New Look Dusty Miller. My friend Sue, who has a channel called Garden Moxie, great channel, you should check it out. She shared these seeds with me last year, and it was the first time I ever grew Dusty Miller, and it is gorgeous. I had shown you how the one that I brought into my basement is doing. It's looking great, and I decided that I needed a whole bunch more. So I started 16 more of these Dusty Miller New Look. Beautiful silvery gray foliage plant. And delphiniums. So these delphiniums were started on 2-5, and I have a tray of each, or a cell pack of each. I have the Delphinium Blue Bee light blue variety, and a Delphinium Blue Bee Cherry Blossom, which is a pink variety. And they're doing pretty good. I have pretty good germination. This one didn't have anything come up yet, but everything else is looking good, which is exciting. And then with those other seeds that I purchased from Baker Creek, the hollyhocks that I showed you, as well as the phlox, I also picked up one more variety of bachelor's button. This one is a dark variety called Black Boy, and it looks really pretty. So I went ahead and I sowed some more of these just a few days ago, actually. And look at that. We already have some germination. So these were sown on 2/19. So pretty fast to germinate these. And this one here has a little bit more going on in the tray. See that? It's funny how there's only one that didn't have anything in the cell, and the same on this one. There is one coming up right there. I can see it. Can you see it? There it is. And some sweet peas. So we started the sweet peas in the toilet paper rolls. They were leftovers from last year, but I did purchase a pack this year just at Walmart the other day. It's called High Scent Sweet Pea. It's like a white and lavender. I'll show you the seed pack. And that one I sowed on 220. So I have 2 packs of those. So I'll have, if these all germinate, I'll have 8 sweet peas here, and then the other 8, I'll have 16 total sweet peas. I'll put them on both sides of my cattle panel trellis in my raised bed garden. And here are the hollyhocks. I also purchased at the Home Depot just a few days ago some ranunculus corms. So ranunculus corms look to me like a little bunch of bananas or fingers. And what you're supposed to do is soak them overnight to plump them up, because they're pretty dry and dehydrated when you get them in those packs at the store. And then after you soak them for 24 hours, you can put them in a shallow tray, something like this. I just have them in like a lasagna pan with some soil, and they will pre-sprout. So you can see this is really exciting. I moistened the soil. I planted them in here, the corms, and they're starting to send up their shoots. Look at that. So these were only planted on 2/12, and it's the 23rd. And they're already sprouting, which is a lot of fun. There's another little shoot coming up here. There were, I believe, 12 corms altogether. And I see growth out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 so far. So really good. And here on this shelf, I put the sweet peas that we started in the toilet paper rolls. I'm always excited to try different experiments like this to see how it works. So that is going there. And then here I have the Dalmatian Peach Foxglove. I grew these last year. They were absolutely stunning. So I recently picked up another pack with my seed order, and all of them germinated except for these 2 corners here. So I went ahead and I popped 2 more seeds in there, and I'm hoping that those will germinate pretty soon as well. They're really slow growing, so if you haven't started them yet and you want blooms this summer, I would recommend getting those going as soon as you can. But such cute little seedlings. And here are the violas and the black devil pansies that I'm growing. Now they are still pretty small, and these are cool weather flowers. I probably should have started these back in December, and it is now February, and this is how big they look. I am going to let them grow a little bit more, and then I will start fertilizing them, and hopefully they will be a bit bigger and ready to bloom for me by the end of April. And before I forget and walk away, I'm going to cover my Vego seed starting cells with their irrigation chambers and add some water. And then I have another really fun experiment that I'm going to share with you. And here's the experiment I'm working on. Different ways to grow poppies. I have about 3 different methods going, and I'll be sure to share the results of that with you. But here I have some in poo pots. Last summer when I visited landscape designer Andrew Grossman, he mentioned to me that he grew his poppies in these poo pots under grow lights over the winter, and then he plants these pots out directly into the garden because these are biodegradable. So you start your plants here, you plant them in the ground, and they continue to grow in these pots. And his poppies were gorgeous, so healthy looking, so robust. So I wanted to give these a shot. They're very similar in look to the peat pots, but these are made out of composted manure. So we'll see how that works out. And the varieties that I'm growing are the Drama Queen, which I've already started with winter sowing, and now I'm in these pots as well. And then I also have a tray going of the Amazing Gray. So I've grown these before as well. They're a little bit of a daintier poppy, very pretty. And I ordered these as well with that last Baker Creek order. So we're going to see how these work out. And let me show you the other poppy experiment I have going on. The poppy ice cube tray. So I actually started this a couple of days ago. So what you want to do is fill up the seed tray with water halfway, freeze it, then place your poppy seeds, mist it with like a spray bottle, freeze them again, and then put the rest of the water on top so that it reaches the top of the ice cube tray. Then you freeze that and you put them out in the garden on top of exposed soil. So I have 2 varieties growing here. I have the Imperial Pink and the Lauren's Grape. And you can see how I spaced them out. The first go at this, what I had done was I put the water all the way up on the ice cube tray, sprinkled in my poppy seeds, and what would happen was they all pulled to one corner. So you can't do that. You have to fill them up first halfway, freeze them, then place your seeds, mist them lightly so that the seeds will stick to the ice, and then put them back into the freezer to freeze before you top them back up with water. So I'm going to go ahead and finish filling these now, and then freeze them back up until tomorrow, where I will place them on the soil. And then we'll see how this experiment works out for growing poppies. This is supposed to keep the poppy seeds frozen and chilled so that they will germinate more easily, because poppies need cold stratification in order for them to germinate. This sunny weekend has been such a mood booster. I was able to take in some sunshine and get caught up on some seed starting. And here I am potting up the Madam Butterfly Snapdragons and my violas. And by next weekend, the first weekend in March, I'm going to start another batch of seeds. My Sahara Rudbeckia, which were gorgeous. I started them for the first time last year, so I want even more this year. I'll also start my Blue Horizon Ageratum and some straw flowers and maybe a couple of other things. These snapdragons are all potted up. I went ahead and I bumped them to these 4x4 inch pots that I had purchased last year. They are currently being bottom watered, and today is Sunday, so next Friday I will start fertilizing them once a week on Fridays. That's how I remember Fertilizer Friday, with this Espoma Organic Grow Fertilizer. I take a cap of this and I mix it into my 2-gallon watering can to dilute it, and then I fill up my small watering can and I bottom water all of the seedlings. While I was at it, I decided to also bump up the violas because I noticed that these already also had a couple of sets of leaves, and so they were ready to be bumped up. I'm hoping that by doing this and giving them potting soil when they were originally in seed starting soil, they now have more nutrients to grow a bit better. And also with the fertilizer, I'm hoping to get them big enough to be able to be transitioned outside by April. And the black pansies, black devil pansies, are still a little bit behind. They're kind of small, so I'm going to give these another week of growth here in their seed starting mix and in these cells, and then I will bump those up as well. I really liked that the hole at the bottom of these Vego seed starting cells were really large, because it helped me poke my finger through and push out the seedling with minimal disturbance to the roots. So that was really helpful. I'm going to work on bumping up this alyssum as well, because I noticed that this one looks like it already has a couple of bloom buds starting. Look at that. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pinch these. So pinching just means that you're going to cut out the top growth so that it will encourage more side growth. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the top of this one off. And that's it. That's all you do. And that way, I can leave these in here for a couple more days, and then I will pot them up closer to the weekend. This is actually pretty fun to do. I'm doing this one-handed, so I'll go back and clean up the pieces that are dropping in a minute. So you see there, you're just going in and cutting that off. Here's another close-up shot. You just go in and cut that off. And that's it. So now this plant will start putting out shoots on the sides, which means you'll get a bushier plant and more blooms. I can't wait until I can start working out in this space again, but I'm going to go ahead and add these 2 winter sowing containers to the rest of the bunch, and we should start seeing some sprouting as soon as it begins to warm up. My guess is somewhere around April, but I'll be sure to keep you posted. This week on Saturday, George and I are doing a viewer appreciation video. We have some fun things planned, and I did put a post about it on my community tab on YouTube, but I don't know how many of you might have seen it. We were actually looking to see if anyone had any questions, whether it be about gardening or anything in general that you might want to ask, because we're going to include a little segment of Q&A. So I hope that you will join us and check in for that video on Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard on March 1st. So thank you so much for spending your time with me today, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, please hit the thumbs up button, and please consider subscribing so you don't miss any of my future videos. And we'll see you soon.